So, one of my favorite Chris Daughtry songs. It's called Witness, and the song starts by the lead singer, Chris Daughtry, asking the simple question of, are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? To which most of us, if not all of us, can most likely reply, yes. Yes, indeed we are. Now, forgive me if I'm not in my usual Cher's rant spirits at the moment. I got my second COVID shot 2 days ago, and I'm not feeling the side effects that people usually get, but I have had this arm be kind of numb. It's a lot better today, but I still kind of get not the type of headache where it's like a huge migraine or the usual headache where it's just annoying for an hour. It's kind of like there's the small knot in your forehead somewhere and it just bounces from place to place, that kind of a thing. So I'm not trying to make myself feel worse during this video, but I thought this video was completely necessary considering the times we are in. And speaking of video quality, maybe I should turn this around a little bit. There we go, much better. I don't think I have to explain to anyone what's going on CNN or whatever news site or channel that you get your news from is bad. Or why it's happening. I don't have to explain why these things are bad by common sense. I hope I don't have to explain any of this because most of you who watch my channel probably have paid attention for the majority of your time in history class, and or if you're in college or if you're out of college, you probably read stuff on the internet about certain scenarios, or you probably most likely know about the history of this bad thing that has plagued our country basically since before its birth, dare I say. So I don't think I have to explain why it's not okay for what's going on to be going on. I honestly did not think I had to explain why basically doing it to another race in another country is also bad. I did not think I had to explain that. But considering the times that we're in, apparently we have to. Apparently we have to talk about it. So for this video, I'm mad about every single corner about the topic of racism. I'm very mad about that. And I don't want this to be I don't want it to pinpoint on a certain topic, but at the same time, I don't want to treat all these levels similarly because racism has existed for many different reasons, as we clearly know. I grew up witnessing the racism firsthand. I lived in a very diverse town in New Jersey, so not just white people, you get a lot of different cultures in the same town. And I went to school with so many different people who come from so many different places. So I was taught to respect everyone. That was how I grew up. I wasn't taught to be racist. I was more taught to be anti-racist, per se, and that's how I want to keep myself educated, and I want to keep myself in this teaching way because, well, I mean, it served me well since 1995, so I think I should continue doing it. I think everyone should be doing this process. But unfortunately, not everyone has the same opinion as I do. And I'm not talking about the opinion on how to go like end racism and all things like that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people have different views of the race topic in general. And it's one of those conversations that you don't really talk about at like parties or something like that, which you definitely should not. But I believe it's a debate discussion that we need to be having more as a community, because clearly there are still people in our society who think that there are certain people who are above others, and as a general rule of things, that's not okay. It's not. Because I tend to believe that we live in a society where that shouldn't matter. Like, it should not matter what you look like or where you're from in order to thrive. I thought that all my life, that shouldn't matter. But apparently to other people, it does. And that's why we keep getting these court cases, and then these protests that are happening, and then these massacres that have been occurring recently. And it just, and when it's all happening at the same time as it has been for the past 1-2 months, if that is the correct timeline. Like, I don't want this to numb us, because if we're gonna treat this like, oh, it just happens, that's gonna make things a lot worse. It doesn't solve anything. At the same time, it should not scare people that this is going to be the new norm. This should be teaching us that this needs to stop. But what happens when the topic of racism starts fading into your fantasies of the celebrity culture? What happens when the harsh reality like that starts seeping in to the fantasy that is the Hollywood industry, the art industry, the music industry? What happens when that reality starts plaguing that specter of things? And this is the part that's been bothering me lately. Because, yes, racism has existed in the entertainment industry as well. Like, this would probably be one of the most biggest factors that racism has existed in a while. Like, if we're gonna talk about, like, the boom of the film industry back in, like, 1920s, 1930s, you're, like, if you guys, I know not a lot of you are movie buffs or movie history buffs like I partially am, but people often forget that, back in those days, things or actors or people who worked in the industry were not exactly diverse, or not as diverse as people thought they were. Because, yes, they did employ Black Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, but back in those days, they were usually given either the slave role or very racist stereotypes. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was pretty bad. Like, if you're a minority who want to get into that industry, you really had to degrade yourself in order to do it, because remember, the industry was built on white people. It was going to thrive on white people. And I'm not saying that was a good thing. I was completely against it. I'm just explaining that's how it was. Like, there's a difference between agreeing with it and just explaining it, as my mom would put it. And now I'm getting off topic again, because it's not exactly the film industry I wanted to talk about today. What's been really bothering the most is this, well, I wouldn't call it a new genre, because the genre has existed since forever, and it's only been like the past, I don't know, 10 plus years since America has gotten their hands on it, and that's K-pop. I know where most of you are probably gonna go with this. It's like, oh, I'm gonna shame South Korea, like, Now I'm gonna turn into a racist and probably make fun of South Korea as a country as a whole. No, that's not my intention here. I don't know much about South Korea as a political country. I really don't. So, the point of this video is not to attack anyone or attack a culture in particular. That's not what I'm doing here. I just did a whole intro thing about how attacking another country or another culture or another race is bad. Like, what really bothers me most in particular, because, like I said, people often forget that K-pop is not a genre that was based somewhere that's familiar to them. This genre is basically Korean pop music. Well, most particularly South Korean pop music. So, basically, this musical genre, yes, it was inspired by a lot of Western music, which is why it got so popular as it was. But people often forget, this genre was catered to South Korean listeners. And it's meant to cater to the South Korean demographic. So, this is where it starts getting, like, where the borderline starts kind of thinning out, or it starts getting lost. Because ever since the rise of the internet, we've discovered a lot of things outside of our own culture that was also pretty good too, and it has reached to the masses. Like, if it wasn't for the internet, we probably would never have discovered music that was in mainland Europe. We probably would never have discovered music from South America. We would never have learned about different or outside America events. Like, we would never hear news what's going on in, I don't know, the Czech Republic or India or Russia or whatever. Without the internet, we probably never would have had this much information before. And we probably have more information now than what we could deal with. Which, in a way, it's a good thing, but in a way, it's kind of not. Like, it's a catch-22. Like, there's never going to be an equal balance between that. So, because of the internet, if we hadn't had the internet, it's most likely that K-pop as a genre itself never would have expanded to the US. Well, for one thing, kind of like everything else, if you want to be a global sensation, like if you want to be Prince, the Beatles, Michael Jackson, if you wanted to be those people, you needed to do something. Like back in those days, this pre-internet days, you would needed to do something or promote yourself to the entire world and explain why you should be a global sensation. And there is no exact formula as to how you got there back in those days. We just know that they were able to do it. Like, they sold records and albums all over the world. Every single country knows this person's name. And it's very rare. Like you go to, my sister went to Japan. Like, yes, Japan has its own music industry too. It has its own J-pop thing. And it's not as global as any other genre. It's not even as global as K-pop right now. Like, there's still a very niche genre in itself. But my sister went to Japan, and she visited a record store with her friend while on this trip. And from glancing around the store, the most popular, like, outside of Japan albums, like from the international section, were Michael Jackson, Queen, I think the Beatles, and like there was nothing really much there. I think she said Mariah Carey, that they saw Mariah Carey albums. It's very, like, you're not gonna find something like Blink-182. You're not gonna find Pat Benatar. You're not gonna find, like, you probably could find Beyonce, but you can't, I don't think you can find Ariana Grande in that section either. Like, it's a very, very small section. And they only have, like, the biggest of the big artists of all time in that section. And it has to be music that these stores know they can sell. They could sell Michael. They could sell Queen. They can sell Beatles. They could sell probably Whitney Houston, Mariah Carey. They know they can sell these albums. So with that said, over the years, I've definitely noticed around the music spectrum of things, since I do review a lot of music on YouTube, that K-pop wants to expand itself to a global market. Because you have groups like SHINee, which was the first ever group that I was ever introduced to, and that was back in like 2010. Like 2 years after they debuted. That they got Girls' Generation, again, introduced to me in 2010. That 1 year after their debut single, I think. They got Blackpink, BTS, NCT, Super Junior. All these groups that have, well, they haven't made it that big into the US, because I think the only group that has ever made it onto radios or even American TV was only BTS. Like, I don't remember if SHINee ever had, like, they never had a single on American radios, or I don't think they even appeared on American television. I think the only English television I think any of them made on was probably Australia. And I remember Taemin did an interview for an Australian talk show, but I don't think I recall them doing like any other English speaking country interview, unless I missed something. Unless, like, if there's like any SHINee stands out there that I'm missing something, please put it in the comments. I really am curious. Like, it is extremely rare for a Eastern music group to make it that big. And the only one I know, BTS, because I remember seeing them on the, like, New Year's Eve party show that, I forgot which channel was doing it, but I think it was, is it the one that Ryan Seacrest is on? I don't remember. I just remember seeing them on TV because I was at my neighbor's house. What we were watching it, this was like pre-pandemic, of course. I do remember they were on there, but I don't think I remember any of them speaking a lick of English. Like, that I could tell you. So, it is like a 1 in a million chance that a group from a smaller country with a kind of more of a niche sound or niche market makes it on a broader scale. And BTS was the group that managed to reach that big of a scale, because everyone in America basically knows that name at this point. But just because they know their name doesn't mean that they have to like them. And this is where the racism conversation comes in. The first part of the racism conversation is, I remember hearing the news for award shows that they were, award ceremonies that they were a part of, because their single was like, I don't know, top foreign hit or something. I don't know what category. I don't pay attention to those shows anymore because the Grammys, they're a joke. Like, after the last Grammys, I'm like, bye. But anyway, I remember, like, news channels talking about how one of the hosts of the news show, or like of the ceremony, like backstage red carpet things, would basically like, there would be a group that would show up to the ceremony that's not BTS. So maybe it would be a group like Super Junior or NCT that would, one of the NCT subunits, or it would be Monsta X that would show up to an award show. But they'd be like, oh, that's BTS right there. That's BTS because they're all Korean. It has to be BTS. And they say it as a joke, but it's a very tasteless joke. Because you can tell these are the people who are like, they don't listen to K-pop outside of BTS at all. Like, they clearly have no idea, like, how much bigger K-pop is as a genre back in its home country rather than it is in America. And something like that, it's like saying, like, we go back to the 1970s and you mistake another Motown group for the Jackson 5. It's the same thing. It's like the same comment, and it turns into a racially charged comment because it's like, oh, like, of this certain genre, every person of this genre looks the same. It's kind of like that, and it's insulting because if another K-pop group tries to make it in the United States, everyone's gonna compare them to BTS because BTS was there first, and I can't imagine being one of these, maybe one of the girls from, like, I don't know, G-Friend or A-Pink, and they make it big in the United States, and people are comparing them to Blackpink. Like, I cannot imagine being one of those girls and be like, oh, they're only gonna see me as, like, a Blackpink ripoff or something like that. So it all started with I remember it started with those comments from like the talk show hosts and news journalists making that like dumb joke, whether they intended to or not, or like I said, it's probably out of pure ignorance, but because like I said, they probably don't listen to K-pop music at all, or it's only BTS they listen to because it's hip. But the part of the problem was, when I first heard these comments from these news articles, I started thinking, oh no, just like Latin pop a few years earlier, they were gonna turn K-pop into the latest music trend. Because, oh, all the kids like it, but it's like they kind of don't understand why K-pop is popular versus how we should make music for the year or the decade that we're in. That sort of thing. And if they turn, oh, it's K-pop, it's just a trend, so these Korean boys that all the girls like now, they're gonna go away eventually. And they're treating, like, I'm just saying, these are real people that we're talking about here. So they're treating, like, these boys from South Korea like they're a commodity. They're more like a product rather than actual people who live like everyone else in their own countries. It's like, oh, they're just gonna go away. And, like, look, that may be true, but at the same time, you can't really compare them to people like Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Harry Styles, like, Fifth Harmony. You can't. Like, both music-wise and, like, in real life person-wise, you really can't do that. And then it all goes downhill right as when the COVID-19 pandemic just went global spread. This is where it really got worse. Like, all of you know about, like, all these, like, online YouTubers and then talk show hosts making, like, racist China jokes because it's thanks to Trump for that. It's like calling it the China virus, and we all know how completely ignorant, narrow-minded, and awful that is. But it gets a lot worse when you tie it to K-pop, going back to the whole trend situation. Because when you treat something as a trend, it means it's gonna go away. So basically, I've seen a lot of talk shows all over the world, not just America. It's an all over the world thing, saying that, oh, these K-pop groups, they're just like the coronavirus, they'll go away. Or they'll basically do the whole, oh, they're Asian, so that means everyone's Chinese jokes. And then recently, we've gotten two instances where one German podcast, or I don't know if it was a talk show or podcast. I'm leaning more towards the podcast thing, where that host called BTS basically the coronavirus embodiment, which is very racist, if I might add. And then most recently, we had a Chilean like comedy show. It's kind of like SNL. Like, that's the only way I could describe it. They had basically a group of actors do Asian face, dressing up as the members of BTS, and they have this very racist skit. Like, I did not watch it because I don't want to take part in this garbage. I really don't. So I just have news articles do it for me. Look, as I've explained on the internet a few times, that I really don't like BTS. Like, honest to God, I don't. However, I suspended my hatred for the group for a few moments. Just to say that you can say whatever bad thing you want to say about them. Like, that is your choice. But if the only thing you have to say about them is their race, which is not just them, but you're basically attacking their entire culture that they come from, that's not right either. Like, there's a saying, don't fight fire with fire because you're gonna make a bigger fire. Basically, don't fight racism with racism. Because if you fight racism with more racism, it's not gonna go away. The racism problem is only going to get bigger. And this is the problem that we've been dealing with. I had a conversation with someone a while back where we were talking about, like, racism against white and black people. It's been a giant fight for centuries. It's been a thing. Like, we all know it's a thing. We all know this exists. So I've heard a lot of people say, like, maybe the black people deserve to be racist to the white people after how white people treated them. And to which I agreed with it for a while, but then at the same time, I'm like, I understand why black people should be mad at white people. I 100% understand that. Like, I've been reading the history textbooks and I've been watching documentaries or I've been listening to people's experiences for far too long to disagree with their thought process. At the very same time, there are people who say, like, I released my video of best songs of 2020 earlier this year, and even Lil Baby himself, in his song The Bigger Picture, he said that he recognizes that not all white people are bad, that not all white people want to hurt us. He completely recognizes that fact. What he states in his song is that all what he wants is for the racism and then the white police against the black citizens just needs to stop. And he doesn't say it as a way to attack the whole white race in general. He never expressed that it's the whole white race's fault. What he does express, it's that we know where the problem is pinpointed at. We know where the problem is. We need to fix this problem so that everything else can get better. And I take that statement into full consideration. So, whether we agree or disagree with a certain culture's views of another culture, like, we can't attack it by saying, oh, everyone in this entire culture is just naturally racist in general. We can't, like, in order to solve a problem, we can't attack an entire race because there's going to be individuals who even don't agree with the racist views. And we know they exist because they clearly say so on social media all the time. When I was talking about the Chilean talk show earlier, I saw many people from Chile talk about, like, on every single video talking about this skit, they say, as a Chilean person, they felt embarrassed having to know that this skit came from an entertainment show from their country. Like, they completely disagree with the whole racism thing, and they do blame the government for not stopping it. So, there are people, anti-racist people, that exist in every country. So this is why I say we can't fight racism with racism, because just accusing each other of being racist does not solve anything. So after saying that, I'm afraid I'm going to be a hypocrite, because now I'm going to explain why, for the first time ever, why I really, really, really don't like BTS as a whole. And I wouldn't say this is solely a BTS problem. This is basically a South Korean K-pop industry problem. Again, not attacking South Korea in any way. Not the whole South Korea, because I highly doubt that's the case. Like I said, fighting racism with racism is not going to work. I've been watching a lot of videos and reading a lot of articles just so I can get the whole story on this group, and oh my god, this group is a rabbit hole of scandal. And when I say scandal, I'm talking about like legit stuff. So you can throw drugs and dating out the window here. Like ever since their debut, the whole point of BTS, like, I don't know what if I'm about to say is the right thing. Because my first thing I wanted to say was basically BTS was just ripping off black music as a whole. Though, like, K-pop producers in general have said that a lot, or the inspiration for their music comes from R&B, hip-hop, rap, which were predominantly black genres. And as far as inspiration goes, inspiration is fine. But the part where it becomes a problem is where they appropriate the musical genres. They appropriate the culture that it comes from. That's where the issue begins. And the start for BTS has been appropriation since the beginning. Like, BTS started as like a full hip-hop rap group. Like, that was basically their concept. Like, hip-hop and rap, it's not the majority genre in South Korea at all. It is not. Especially back in the day when they first got famous. It was not the majority genre. Basically the majority genre when K-pop started was the same pop music that America had been releasing since the 90s. Like, the same Britney Spears, Spice Girls type thing. And, which is perfectly fine. I didn't care. It was perfectly fine. So, BTS was kinda, sorta, not really revolutionary because they were groups before that, but they were not as big as BTS was going to get. But, how BTS debuted, like, not all the members, but some of the members, they were designed with, like, cornrow, dreadlock hairstyles. As we all know, these are predominantly, or only, black hairstyles, and they have a specific history to these hairstyles. So for people who are clearly not black, wearing these hairstyles to match the genre of that was predominantly black is, I would say, more than concerning. And it also comes to the point where it's like, oh, the boys probably didn't have a choice in these hairstyles. They were probably required from the designers and producers to wear it. It may be true, especially if you're a new group that is about to debut or you just debuted. That's probably true. You probably can't say crap when you first start out, or you're afraid you're gonna get kicked out. It's most likely true. But allow me to explain. I'm sorry, folks. I'm trying to calm myself down because I know what I'm about to say next. And this is the part that's gonna rile me up a lot. It's not just looking like a certain person of culture that it starts with. It's also the things that they said. Like, back in the early 2010s, the BTS members were known for joking around about the color of their Asian skin, or basically the things that are involved with the hip-hop genre, with the black culture that's associated with it. They have called each other racial slurs as a joke. They have used the N-word before. And these are things that people in the BTS fandom never tell others about. Because if there's one thing I know about BTS, that was because I used to be in the Believer fandom when I was very young, back when Justin Bieber was first getting famous. It's that fandoms like these, when anything bad happens, they basically go all FLDS on you and hide everything that's bad. Like, they literally warp the truth of the situation to make it seem that it was not BTS's fault that these things happened. Either it was thrusted upon them or it was taken out of context, even though in reality that was not the case. And the members who were there in the fandom longest would literally bully new people into believing that the real stuff on the internet is not true, just so it benefits them and it makes them feel better that their favorite musical group, whether their music is good or not, are actually angels, instead of, letting these people take responsibility for what they did. And they would literally make up apology notes or apology comments from BTS just to make them feel better. When in reality, BTS never really apologized all that often for the things that they done. And now I'm gonna get to the part what really makes me angry. Because as a white person, I can't really speak about their offense about black culture, whether their apologies were sincere or not. Because I was not the culture that they offended. Even though I am offended by it, I can never take their apologies or their comments to the 100% extent, because I'm not associate, or not really associate, I am not a part of that culture. Like, I have a ton, I don't want to be one of these people that says this. I have a lot of black friends, minority friends. And yes, I can be an ally to them and support them. However, I cannot really speak upon their behalf. If that makes any sense to anyone. I don't want to be that ignorant white person. I really don't. I want to make sure that I'm wording this as correctly as I can. So, if BTS were to apologize, whether the apology is good or not, for the racist comments that they said towards the black community, as a white person, I can't really say if that apology is acceptable or not, because I was not the community that they attacked. What I can say, though, was not only was BTS involved with great racism, they were involved in very bad anti-Semitic garbage. The first thing I remember hearing about it was my sister's best friend, who I don't know if she's still a BTS stan or not. I honestly don't. She she told me and my sister about the time where BTS had a photo shoot, and one of them was wearing not a full-on Nazi soldier outfit, but he was wearing like Nazi symbols on his clothes and his hat too. And she had pictures to show proof of it. And I looked up the pictures myself later to see, how much evidence there was of it. You can tell that the BTS's company and the fandom itself tries very hard to delete and hide these pictures as possible, because when I looked them up myself, like, the only good pictures I can find are basically the close-up shots of what the evidence of the Nazi symbol is. Those are the only good pictures that most likely haters and other netizens can find, because that's the only thing that's left surviving on the internet. And the thing about the internet is, even though something is deleted, it's not really gone. That's why these pictures are still here. That's why Louis Tomlinson haters still post that tweet where he called Paris Jackson a slut are still on the internet. That's why it still exists. And that's why Camila Cabello's racist garbage is still on the internet, because even though she took her Tumblr down, people still take pictures of that and they can post it however they want. So if someone says, oh, it never happened, here's the evidence. So even though something is deleted, people know it's not really gone, especially if you work. Like, I don't know how the inner systems of the internet work, but I'm assuming there are people who run the insides and they have all that information, and if the police or the FBI are looking for it, they can just literally pull it up for them like that. That's why the police and the FBI can find a lot of people easily. Just look at the Capitol riots. That's how it happens. So I got very angry about that. But what made me angry more about that situation was when people are saying, oh, they already apologized to that. So I had to look it up. And yes, the company did make a public apology about it. But what made me think that wasn't enough was it was the company that apologized. It wasn't the BTS singer who wore the outfit who apologized. The company had to do it for him, which made me think, okay, I don't know if this is common practice for them or not, that the company always apologizes for this, but I was like, how come the idol couldn't do it? It was the idol who offended them. Like, at this point, it was already many years into their career, and I'm sure if the singer had seen the costume for the photo shoot, he could have had the choice to say, no, I don't want to wear that, because this is part of a Nazi uniform. I'm not going to wear that for a photo shoot. Are you crazy? But what really made me more mad was I didn't find out until years later, or sometime later, that wasn't the only Nazi-related thing that they did. Like, what also happened was they went to Germany for, I don't know what for exactly. This is how much I really don't care about BTS. I only research what benefits me for BTS, or what would be beneficial for presenting to the internet wise. You can call me a hypocrite for that. I don't care. You really can. So I learned of the story where they went to Germany. I don't know if it's Berlin or somewhere else, but I think I don't know. Actually, I don't know. But somewhere in Germany, I think my sister would know better, there is a Holocaust Memorial, where it basically is a memorial to honor those who were wrongfully killed in the concentration camps during the Holocaust. These were all the Jewish victims who were, like, unwillingly involved in the conflict with the Third Reich. And basically what these boys thought was or what even the company, or I don't know, whoever thought this was a good idea, but they decided they were going to take a fun photo shoot in a Holocaust memorial. So the boys are basically, like, stepping on the stones of the with the memorial with the names on them. They were stepping on graves, like making fun poses. And I don't know if this was like for a comeback or a single album jacket or whatever they were doing, but they were at this this public, like, I don't know if I want to call it a grave site, but it's basically a site where it's like if you go out to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii, and there's I think the ship's called the SS Arizona, and you go out to this the memorial where the ship sunk and they couldn't get it out, and there's still bodies down there. You go to that memorial, and then you start, like, I don't know, doing TikTok memes inside that memorial. I've been to that memorial twice in my life. Not the Holocaust one, the Pearl Harbor Memorial. And it is so melancholic in there. Like, the moment you step into that memorial, no one makes a sound. Not even a whisper. Like, you go into this, like, rectangle white building, and on the far wall, it's all the names of the soldiers or whoever was working on this ship at the time Pearl Harbor was attacked. And these are still the bodies that are still down there, or the people who have died on this ship during this incident. And, like, it makes you want to cry because it's that quiet. And I've done it. I've cried because it makes you realize, like, how it must have been for you to be on that ship while that bomb exploded and you couldn't get out. And you were never given a proper burial because they couldn't get those bodies out of that ship. Like, it's basically impossible. So I would probably have done the same thing when people were visiting the Holocaust Memorial. It's the most saddening, melancholic place to be because you have to remember, like, this is not a fun museum where kids can go look at the dinosaurs or whatever. This is a reminder of how many people had to die to realize how terrible a situation is. And basically, these people used the excuse of they're from Korea, they don't know better, to basically act like a bunch of fools in this public place of mourning and grief. Just for what? To promote their music? And now I'm getting very emotional here, because I'm not Jewish. I don't think I associate myself with any religion at all. Like, I'm gonna be flat out honest here. I don't have any connection to Judaism, other than friends being Jewish, of course, but myself, I don't have, like, a personal thing with it. But there's a part of me who, like how black people in the black community, they say how blasphemous it is to appropriate and to, like, for people of other races to use their culture as, like, a trend or a fashion statement. Because a culture or religion is not a fashion statement. It's not a trend. It's a personal thing. What the personal thing for me is, not only did my grandfather serve in World War II to fight against I think he was actually in I can't remember if it's the Navy or the Marines, but he was sent to Pearl Harbor basically after Pearl Harbor actually happened. So he understands what it's like, or understood what it's like. I never met him. He passed away before I was even born. But the other thing was, my stepfather is from the Netherlands. His family were from the Netherlands, like, generation upon generation. So his grandmother, I can't remember from which side, his grandmother was, or that her family was a Jewish family. So when the Third Reich invaded the Netherlands, of course, she remembered getting, or my dad told me that she basically received papers, like kind of like a census. Like, if that makes any sense, like it records your information for public's sake. And she came across the question of, is her family Christian, Jewish, what religion, you know? And she knew something was up. So she wrote down Christian, even though that was a lie. And, I mean, all of you could know what's going to happen next after that. And it's not just the religion factor of it all. It's all of the Netherlands who did not want Germany to be there, mind you. They literally lived in suffering until World War II was over. So, knowing that from my extended family, like knowing that part of my extended family's history, if I were to stan BTS as a group, knowing what BTS did to offend the Jewish community, I can't. Like, I cannot sit here and be brainwashed and say, oh no, they were never anti-Semitic, because that's not true. And in my personal heart, that would kill me. That would literally kill me. If someone were to ask me, how come you basically buy all of their albums and get all their concert tickets or buy all their merchandise junk or whatever, and you're ignoring the fact of how they disrespected the Jews during what was probably the worst case of genocide in their recent memory. This is how emotional I'm getting. I can't do that. Like, this is how angry I am. I can't do that. Like, I would never, like, just because the K-pop industry and South Korea might have a few bad apples that are publicly loved on the internet, just because of that, I can't attack the entire country of South Korea, because for all I know, maybe the majority of them love foreigners. Like, maybe the majority of South Korea actually really hated that this situation happened. Like, the worst part of this too is that when the company, I think it's Big Hit Entertainment, when the company released that excuse of an apology letter, which was mainly apologizing for the photo shoot thing, they didn't even bring up the whole memorial issue. The only reason why they sent that apology in the first place was because Germany and Jewish rabbi got super fucking pissed. And they publicly denounced them on the internet. Only when that happened was when Big Hit decided, we're gonna do damage control, and released this basically useless apology stating, we promise it's never gonna happen again. But then they've been racist and offensive ever since then. Like, this is the part of celebrity culture that is very difficult, because they could be super talented, they could do a lot of good things, but the very moment when something bad happens, and then the only way they could do damage control is to basically bury that bad thing like 100 feet underground, to the point where they even support people saying, or brainwashing other people to think, this was made up. Like, the haters and the people on the internet, they just love making stuff up because they basically hate us. When in reality, that is not true. Like, this goes against the racism against racism thing. Like, hating a fandom when people hate your other fandoms is not going to solve anything. Like, as much as I hate what the BTS fandom does, I can't hate the people in them. Because either whether they actually are the terrible people that they are, or maybe they're just young innocents who literally don't understand what they're saying is wrong. Like, it's not the people's fault. It's how the situation is being dealt with. That's what's wrong. Because if they really wanted to, BTS and Big Hit Entertainment could basically tell the BTS fandom, the armies, to shape up and be like, okay, don't be stupid. Like, we've acknowledged what we did, so don't tell people lies and make us look bad. But the thing is, they don't. They choose not to, because these people sit on such high thrones, like, they think they're next to Jesus. Like, they could probably be making so much money like Jesus that they don't care what's being said about them at this point. Like, if, like, being a bystander is the same thing as encouragement, in my mind. Because if you're not doing anything to stop it, like, if you're just letting it happen and play the ignorance card, it doesn't solve anything. Like, the fact that BTS has been getting away with this crap since their debut and they still have fans, it continues to baffle me to this day. It just proves that even if you're the worst person on the face of the planet, you can just get away with literal murder because you're loved so much. And this has been happening since forever. Like, it wasn't really until now, to almost 10 years ago, that the community starts having the eat the rich attitude, and now even our own celebrities and our own like 1% rich population has to be held accountable for things. Because trust me, if this situation happened like 50 years ago, nothing would be done. Like, they would still defend the rich people because they have the money and they have the lawyers to get away with it. Fortunately, nowadays things are different and people are now being held accountable, thankfully. I mean, it's still very slow going, but at least we're going somewhere. It's also thanks to social media that the word is being spread about these terrible things and that people need to be held accountable for them, because back in those days, they don't have social media, they don't have like cell phones or computers full of comments from people all over the globe telling them how horrible they were for doing said thing. But nowadays, like I said, it's kind of like a blessing and it's a curse at the same time. Because on an everyday basis, you could be getting comments of saying how much people love you, but you could also be getting like millions of comments saying how much people despise you, how much people want to set you like death threats and stuff. And by the way, death threats are still wrong. Like, no one should be saying death threats. At the same time, if something very, very bad is going on in the world, like the events that are occurring right now, we need to send information that holds people accountable for what they did wrong. And we can't stop sending proper information and sending common sense, like, words of wisdom. Like, don't threaten people, but if you have an opinion that something is wrong, express it in a way that gets people to say, you know what, I agree with you. And that's what, of course, I always try to do. Hatred is not the way to go here. And even though I could be so angry and say, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you in my mind in the moment, at the very end of the day, like, what's the real issue here? The people or the small people who have those idiot opinions? Or is it, like, the bigger minority who's controlling the smaller people to have these opinions? Like, whatever that you read on the internet, like whatever you see on a TV screen, at the end of the day, it's what you do with that information that makes you the person that you are. Because if you just take that information and you spew your anger all over the place without being constructive, it's not really going to do much at all. But if you take this information and use your anger to be more informative, rather than be, oh, you should do this because I say so. Like, the best way I can compare it to is the episode of The Simpsons when Lisa becomes vegetarian, and the whole episode is about Lisa trying to force her community, her friends, to become vegetarians because she's trying to point out all the bad things like these animals have to go through in order to get your meat. And even though, yes, those bad things are true and these bad things need to be shown, at the same time, how she was going about it, which ends up ruining her father's neighborly barbecue, how she went about it wasn't the proper way to go about it, because it turned her into like a activist laughingstock. So, and at the end of the episode, when she's with Apu at his store, and he's basically like, I look at it this way, Lisa. Like, you are allowed to express your opinions and express your view on things without forcing it upon others. So, at the end of the day, don't go into a fandom and have people thrust their own opinions upon you, regardless of how you feel. You should go into something that you like with an open mind and willing to accept any information that you do get from it, because regardless whether it's fake news or even if it's real information, like I said, the internet is a blessing and a curse. Like, it's not really black or white with the internet these days. Like, trust me, there's a lot of K-pop news or even celebrity news that's fake, that haters make up just to get a fandom riled up. That does exist, I'm not gonna lie. However, there are specific websites that do give facts and that do keep their news published for people to see, because it's what happened. Like, CNN always keeps their news up, and you also have like National Geographic, you have Time Magazine, you have tons of these real articles that exist out there. You have encyclopedias that tell information the way that it is. Like, you just really gotta go dig down and find it. And then when you do find it, please accept that information for what it is, and it's how you deal with that information that affects you as a person. So, as I've been stating throughout this entire rant video, please don't use this video as a way to attack someone. Like, don't use this video as my attack on BTS as a whole. This whole video is about informational and constructive criticism of sorts, and giving my opinions on why I think these sort of things and whatnot. Don't use this as to say I promote attacking on people, because as I said, racism against racism, fire against fire does not work. It hasn't worked then, it doesn't work now. So, maybe before I lose my voice, I should end it here. At the end of this video, you want to be a part of the change to stop the racism, to stop these attacking of different cultures and religions altogether. Yes, please go and do so. Please go out there, join activist groups, join like forums to discuss like the bads and like the how to join the movements to stop the racism, stop the anti-Semitism, to stop the xenophobia, to stop all of it. Like, I encourage you to look up all the information that you can on how to become an ally or to become an activist to stop this altogether. This is like, how I'm going to end this is to encourage, not to discourage, to encourage the gaining of information, to educate yourselves, the encouragement of education. And that's all I really ask of you today. I'm not asking people to stop standing BTS or whatever, to stop standing other celebrities and groups that you like. Like, I'm not even encouraging you to stop listening to K-pop overall, because what's that gonna do? Nothing. I encourage you to make a change. And to make a change for the better. And if it makes you feel better, then I greatly encourage it. And please, at the end of the very day, don't use this video as permission to go attack other people. That's not why I'm here. So I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and maybe if you want to go outside, I encourage you to go outside. I encourage you to stop watching videos for a while and to cool down, read a book, play video games, do whatever you do that could calm you down and make you not focus on the world as much. All of us need a break from all of this. Trust me, I do too. So make sure you save time for yourself and to just meditate and basically clear your mind of all the stresses throughout the day. Because trust me, I think a little too much of this is going to drive a little bit of us crazy. So be informative. At the same time, also make sure you distance yourself from it every once in a while. Like, release those pressures, especially after this. So I'm Cait, Cher, and it's been real. And because this is that kind of video, please stay safe, make sure you stay healthy, and please enjoy the rest of your day. See ya.